Good morning, everybody. I take great pride in introducing Kilo Akuna, class of 2006, to you. I taught Kilo 2 out of 4 years in high school. Have the scars to prove it. Actually, he was one of my most creative and talented students. So him being here today is very, very, very much a source of pride to me, but not a surprise at all. As an entertainment industry professional, a computer graphics supervisor who now specializes in post-production, Kilo has been fortunate enough to work on over 100 projects divided between television, movies, commercials, and gaming. He's also gotten to work in almost every facet of movie magic, from personal assistant work, delivering coffee and hard drives, pitching a movie, pre-production, being on set, and working in visual effects and post-production. Kilo says of himself, "I'm a nerdy gamer who was inspired as a kid by my love of Smash Brothers, Final Fantasy, Jurassic Park, World of Warcraft, Spiderman, and FLCL. I hope you all know what that means, because I don't. During my years at Villanova and Chapman University, I was able to find friends who also loved gaming and movies. This passion and those friendships helped give me the drive to learn as much as I could about how to work in the industry that I'm in today. My close friends during my Villanova years, I still talk to 16 years later. Nowadays, he spends his free time with his wife, Maria, dogs, and friends, watching horror movies and anime, playing fighting games, and tending his home and garden up in the mountains, which he now calls home. Once again, it's with great pride I introduce you to Kilo Akuna.
Hi everybody, I'm Kilo Akuna of the class of 2006. As he said, I'm a CG supervisor. What that means is I sit down with the director, the producers, the 2D supervisors, the VFX supervisors, and we figure out how to get a show done. And typically what that means is I go through and I go, all right, this is going to need modeling, this is going to need rigging. Modeling is when you build sculpture, rigging is when you put all the bones inside the sculpture, so the animators who make it move can make it move. And then we go into tracking and layout. Tracking is where you recreate how the camera moves. Layouts is when you recreate the entire environment. So let's say we wanted to put something in this gym, right? We wanted to have like a meteorite fall from the sky, crash through the top, and then like aliens come out of the meteorite and start chucking chairs around while everyone runs away. So what you need to do is you come in here, you get a scanner, you scan the entire environment, and recreate it in 3D. And you have to make like a model of the meteorite, and it comes and hits the model of the top of the roof, and then effects, the effects side, they'll actually make it explode. There'll be fire coming out, there'll be stuff like crumbling down, and then it'll hit the ground, and then it'll open it up, and aliens will come out, which will need to be animated by the animators to run around and grab chairs. Well, those chairs will also have to be modeled. And those will also have to be rendered, because when the alien grabs it, it's going to go from a practical chair, which is already there in the plate, to then being a CG chair that it throws. And all the people running around will most likely be actors, but sometimes those can also be like digital doubles that we also make. So there's a lot that goes into it, and so my main job is to make sure that we get everything that we need, and we get it done in time, which is fun. So when I was your age, I'd be sitting here, and This is me actually, your age. So you guys might know me because there may be some rules in your handbook that were added in after I started going here. I was always sort of a rule bender. I would try to figure out like, okay, I'm allowed to do this, 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 this. Well, they didn't tell me I can't do this. So let me do this. And one of those things was like bathrobes wasn't in there, ponchos. And you know, after the first or second time, you know, that got written in. That wasn't allowed anymore. But that kind of mentality actually serviced me later on in life, and I'll get into that. So when I graduated Villanova, I was 100% sure what I wanted to do was get into games. I'm going to be a programmer. I'm going to make the best games ever. I'm going to be the indie programmer of the year. That's my thing. Right? You have that dream, you have that goal, and you go for it. I started programming, found out, programming is not for me. After maybe my like 100th spreadsheet that I had to program, I took a game design course. Like, this is, you know, everything's gonna be better than spreadsheets. I'm gonna go into game design, we're gonna do this. And what I found out is actually what I liked about the process was the modeling, the rigging, the more visual effects oriented side of it, the more artistic / technical side of creation. So, pivoted, did a hard pivot. I'm like, now the new thing I want to do is I'm going to get into film. Chapman University, where I went to school, they had a really good film program. Very hard to get into. Didn't accept very many students. And I was a little bit worried. Me and my roommate at the time both really wanted to get into it, and both really had a hard time getting into that film school. So I didn't let that get me down. What I did, I got to know all the teachers. I got to know all the students in the film school. I started sitting into classes regardless of if I was allowed into film school or not. Just didn't let no be an answer in this sense. And before I knew it, I had taken all the courses, and they let me into film school. And from there, it opened up some new doors. Because I was actually in film school, I could do internships. And I used that to then get my first little job. So let me get into this. So why are we here today? We're here today because I want to tell you guys how to get your foot in the door and how to do well and thrive in an industry that is sort of notorious for being cutthroat and hard to survive in. And what you'll need are the foundations. So the first foundation is to get good. And what that means is you have to work on yourself, work on your skills. Before anything matters, people will tell you, oh, you need connections, you need this, you need that. Yeah, those are important, but if you don't work on yourself, if you don't actually have skills that you've worked on, it won't really service you. So when I was in film school, what I noticed is everyone was doing modeling. They all wanted to be modelers, they all wanted to be animators, they wanted to make like cartoons and stuff like that. And what all of them needed was someone who was a rigger, which is a more technical side. No one knew how to put the bones in, put the muscles inside the body. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna learn this. And I went hard. I bought books. I watched a million videos. I did a lot of projects. I learned. I learned how to learn. I learned that my way of learning was not through just reading something or listening to something. I actually have to do stuff, do an actual project to learn. I have to fail a lot to learn. I've probably failed more times at projects than most people have tried to start a project. And through that failure and through that learning process, I've got better and better and better. And before I knew it, in college, I had everyone. I was doing the rigs for every project in school. I was putting the bones in, I was doing like tentacles, I was doing crazy bird robots, I was doing everything. And I built this niche, this like technical niche that I didn't know when I first went into it, that's what I wanted to do. But I found it and I learned and I got as good as I could. Nowadays, I look back at that stuff and I was like, wow, I was so bad. I was so bad at doing that. But I don't let it stop me. So keep going. So after I got good, I learned how to learn. I got that internship. My friend was talking. He's like, hey, so I'm going to be trying to work at Zoic. It's a big visual effects studio. And they're looking for someone to intern. At that point, it was unpaid, so no money. And basically, all I was doing was PA work, delivering coffee, delivering drives, driving in traffic for 2 hours just to get from one side of Hollywood. It was like 5 miles away. I don't know how there was so much traffic. And just doing that all day. But I wasn't only doing it. And one of the important things to know about making connections, when you have these opportunities to meet people in person, get to know them. So I wasn't just delivering coffee, I was sitting with artists, I was learning, oh, this is what you do, oh, this is how you do it. I found other people that rigged in that studio and was trying to learn from them too, because they know more. They're already doing it. So yeah, I did that a lot. And from that, I started learning how to do something called tracking. I had no idea what it was. Most people, it's going to be really weird. You basically recreate how a camera moves, and I had no idea. I didn't learn in school, didn't learn anything about it. But I was sitting with them, I was learning it, and they're like, hey, do you want to learn how to track? Do you want to learn how to rebuild environments? And I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it. Sat down, they were telling me how to do it. I was learning. Soon enough, I started getting shots. And that's an opportunity. When you see an opportunity, you take it, and you go for it. And I was like, I'm going to be the best on this shot ever. No one's ever going to do a better job tracking than I am. And so I'm like doing this shot, I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I show it to my boss at the time, and he was like, this is terrible, and he deleted it. And I was like, okay, wow, all right. And so after that, I was like, okay, I got to learn. And I was like, what did I do wrong? And he showed me, and I went through it. I was like, okay, all right. And I got better and better, and eventually, he didn't delete it. He was like, yeah, this is acceptable. This is fine. I'm like, okay, cool, awesome, win. And I'm like, I'm gonna be the best. And so I just kept on practicing. I was doing weekends, learning. And you know, it gets crazy. You work. When I started, I was working maybe 16 hours a day, no days off. Like something is nuts. But nowadays I don't do that. That's awesome. Yeah, you just put the work in, you get to know people, and it's all going to pay off if you start meeting people. And that gets into be driven. I had to put the hours in. It was a lot of hours. I wouldn't recommend 16 hours a day. That was a bit extreme. But you know, you're going to have to put the hours in. You're going to have to learn, and you're going to have to be okay with someone telling you no in a really harsh way, such as my boss deleting everything. So sooner or later, at this point too, I didn't actually mention it. I lived in Ventura, and my work was in Culver. It was about a 3-hour drive. So plus 16 hours of working, you know, that's 6 hours of driving, 22 hours of being awake. I decided to sleep in my car. So I was sleeping in my car, working this job, getting paid $12 an hour, less money than I was making doing fast food at the time at In-N-Out. And just, it was nuts. And eventually, I was like, I gotta do something different. So through making friends with people, I started sleeping on couches. And I ended up sleeping on couches probably for another 2 years, just with different friends, different people that were there, just trying to make it do, working my way up. About a year and a half in, I went from being a junior artist to a senior artist, which is very quick, a lot of learning. And then I started leading shows. As soon as they were like, hey, we have Once Upon a Time. Do you want to work on this show? I'm like, yeah, I'll be in charge of it. And I owned it. I knew everything about the show. I knew every shot number, like memorized in my head, everything. Nowadays, not needed. I can't remember a shot number to save my life. I have everything written down. That's fine. I don't need to memorize that stuff. But back then, oh yeah, I'm going to memorize everything. I'm going to get everything done. And staying with friends who are also driven. That's a big thing. Make some friends with people who are also driven. Our whole house were artists, and we're all just like trying to work as hard as we can. And those are the foundations. You need to have that tenacity, that drive, that friendship-making ability to make it, to get your foot in the door. All right, now here's how to survive. Because working 16 hours a day is not healthy. And I found out after maybe 3 years of doing that I needed to take a break. So I sat back, I got away, and I decided I needed to find a little bit better way of doing things. Ended up starting like a little side project with a bunch of friends and work on myself. Work on, hey, how about I work 8 to 12 max hours a day? How do we get that to happen? And that was pretty important. So it's also about like taking time for yourself to be healthy. Also, how to survive, opportunity. Whenever an opportunity arises, you got to know how to strike. So, for example, I had taken a break for a little bit, and a friend hit me up and was like, hey, you want some side projects? I'm like, yeah. Started doing a bunch of side projects. Before you know, they're like, well, we have like a little, you're pretty good at this thing. We have like this little studio. It wasn't little. Actually, the studio I worked in was tiny. It was this little tiny, probably smaller than like half the size of one of your classrooms, like in terms of size. But it was at Universal, and it was actually right behind the Transformers ride. I don't know if anyone's been to Universal. And there would actually be like golf carts and like tour guides coming by. And so I got offered to do that. Because I just happened to be really good at tracking, I knew how to work on set systems. But we sat back there and I was like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm doing this, but you can see, I could see that the project was only gonna be maybe a month, 2 months max. That's not enough to live off of. I need another job. Luckily though, there's a lot of luck in the world, but it's also just, there's a lot of opportunity, and you need to know how to go towards it. One of my friends needed to show another friend around. He had a friend visiting. I had to show him around. We're all having fun. We're playing some video games. We're going around LA. And I started asking, like, wait, what are you guys up to nowadays? They're talking about this like little game studio that they're working at, this motion capture studio. And I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. Are you guys looking for anybody? I wasn't really expecting anything out of it. I was just like, hey, maybe I want a job with this place. Let's see what goes on. They're like, yeah, we have actually a rigging job opening up. And it's going to be really competitive. We have like 5 to 10 people applying, and you have to do this whole test. And you can choose whether or not you want to work at it at home and turn it in, or if you want to go into the office and actually do the whole test there. You get 5 hours. And I'm like, okay, when do I need to do this by? Well, we're going to start hiring people on Monday. This was a Thursday. And I was like, okay, I'll show up on Friday, and I'll take your test, and we'll see how we do. And he was like, really, you're going to come inside? Everybody else is doing it from home. And I was like, well, first off, I like to go inside of a place, first to meet people. I like to meet people, but I also like to see the environment. I had just come from a studio where I was working 16 hours a day. I wanted to go inside, look around, and see if people were living in the building. I wanted to see if there was cots set up. I wanted to see like if people were laughing, if people were having a good time, get a general feel for the place. And also just being there is sort of a leg up. In my mind, if I can, a lot of people will say they can get it done in 5 hours. A lot of people talk is cheap, in my mind. A lot of people will say, hey, yeah, I can get it done in 5 hours, and they'll get the stuff, and they might actually take like 3 days, and then they'll turn it in. I wanted to show them I could do it. So showed up, aced it, easy. It was easy. Interviews are easy. We can talk about that later too, but they basically just want to know you're not like, I don't know, like a weirdo in a bad way. A weirdo in a good way. But they want to make sure that you'll get along with them, basically. That's all it is. But yeah, so I got a job through that, and that was directly through video games, like straight up. Like we played a lot of games together. We played fighting games all the time. And we sat down, played some fighting games, talked about, what's going on. And the biggest thing and that's why it's in caps, is trust. Trust was the hardest thing to get a hold of when I was first starting off. And what that means is trust in yourself, trust in your friends and family, and trust in your coworkers. And it's not just like blindly trusting, it's also learning how to earn trust and when someone is deserving of your trust. So, I'll get into that in a second. So for trust. When I was first starting off in the industry, as you probably already recognized from how I was, I'm like a real, like, I'm gonna do everything, I'm gonna be the best ever. Well, you can be the best ever at one thing, but it's very hard to be the best ever at every single step of the way, you know? So at a certain point, you're gonna have to trust that other people that are also working in this job in other departments can do their job, right? You're gonna have to trust that what you're giving them, they can do. You're gonna have to trust yourself. When you're starting off in a new studio, when you're starting off in a new job, a lot of people, myself included, when I was first starting, they have something called imposter syndrome, where you just don't fully believe that you deserve to be there, and it's really hard to trust yourself to be like, no, I can do this. A lot of times I'll start somewhere like, am I really that good at rigging? Am I really that good at tracking? Am I really that good at modeling? I don't know. And if you keep on working on yourself, over time you're going to get that confidence. You just got to believe in yourself. Believe that they hired you for a reason. They brought you here for a reason. And just go with it. Be confident in your decisions when it comes to that, because everyone's going through that when they get hired. Everyone has this imposter syndrome, especially when they get a raise. Everything's new. It's how it is. Next thing, trust your friends and your family. So a lot of times through my life, I had times where, things got hard. And especially in the industry where there's a lot of project-based stuff, you might be working somewhere for a little bit, and then the project's done. Well, now where do you go? Well, if you have a good amount of friends that you can trust, maybe you're going to be staying with them for a little bit. Maybe you're going to be staying with your family for a little bit. But they're going to be your biggest supporters. They're going to be helping. They should be helping push you forward. They shouldn't be trying to pull you back. So, trust in them. And the next thing is trusting coworkers. Now that I've moved on to more supervision roles, where I'm like looking over departments, one thing that you'll notice with new supervisors a lot of times is they won't trust their artists. They'll try to do everything themselves. And you can't do that. You're gonna have to trust your artists. So you're gonna have to delegate when you're managing. You can't do everything. You can't micromanage everything. No one wants to work under someone who's micromanaging every hour. Oh, when's this done? Are you gonna get this done? When are you gonna get done? Maybe ask them in the morning, and they say they're gonna get done by the end of the day. Give them the benefit of the doubt, if they've earned your trust. And if someone keeps on under-delivering, maybe you gotta tailor your trust a little bit. But if someone is shown like, hey, they can get this stuff done, they say what they mean and they get it done, you're gonna have to trust them at some point. And that can be hard to do, but very, very, very important. And probably one of the biggest reasons why I've done so well. I can delegate. I don't necessarily know how to be the best modeler. I don't necessarily know how to be the best effects guy, personally. Me personally doing it. I can do it, but I'm not as good as like the guy who specialized in it for like 20 years. This guy's been doing it forever. I'm gonna trust that he can do this thing, and I'm gonna tell him, hey, I need you to make a werewolf, and he needs to look like this, this, and this. And then we're gonna show him some concept art. And he's gonna be like, all right, I'll get this done. And you know what? I gotta trust that he can do it. And if I can't, then you're gonna have a lot of problems. I've had some supervisors that are basically tried to do everything up until the point that they basically failed. It was like, they were just sitting there and they weren't telling anybody that they could do it. They couldn't do it or couldn't get it done. So yeah, it can be crazy, but trust, very important. And that's about it on this. I would like to show you guys a reel of the stuff that I work on. And then afterwards, I'll open it up. I'll legitimately answer any question having to do with visual effects, maybe my experiences, or whatever, like pretty much. I'm a pretty open book, as long as it's allowed to be said. I'll talk about it. I'm not a Mac user. Let's see. Here we go. Boom. And some sound. Do that. Oh. Yes, I do need help. Can you help me, please? I'm a PC user in Linux. I know nothing. I know nothing of this world. I'm like, why? I know. So I'm trying to put the sound on, and I click on it. And it goes, I want to get small. Oh, no, no. I'm trying to do it like that. And that's it. See, it's manager.
that was very cool. Hey, first question I want to ask, and then we'll pass the mic around to people, but can you talk a little bit about how Villanova prepared you for this stuff that you're doing now and for life?
Yeah, totally. So there's actually a couple ways that it really prepared me. One was a general breadth of knowledge about different subjects. Like my math skills, I found out, are a little bit better than the average person. And I think a lot of it has to do with the education I got here. It's just sort of funny, like sometimes I'll be talking to an artist and they won't even know how to like multiply something by 10. Like their brain is very, very artistic, sometimes. Or sometimes they won't know like, hey, how do I find the reciprocal of a number? Just different weird things. And I end up using trig a lot. Trig and geometry a lot in what I do. So in that way it helped. Another weird way that it helped, I think going to a smaller school like this prepared me more for the real world than actually going to college did. And one way is, when you go to a small school like this, you sort of know everybody. You have to meet everybody, know everybody at least a little bit, and it's harder to run away from people that you may not like. So, it's just like a workplace, when you're working with people, you know, you might not like certain people that you work with, but you still got to work with them. Just like you guys still got to go to school with the people that you don't like, at least for another 4 years, or 1 year, or a few months. So I think in that way it also prepared me.
Who was your math teacher?
I had a few. So I had, yeah, my memory is the worst in the world. No, I did not have Dr. Lee, actually.
Mr. Hart? Mr. Hart?
No, Mr. Hart also started right when I was there. It was, I did have Mr. McConville. Oh, hey! What's up? Yeah, we went to Mexico together. Yeah, my memory's terrible with names. I can remember a face, like easy, but names, I actually now am in the habit in my neighborhood, I write down everybody's name that I meet. Because I'm like, I'm gonna forget your name immediately, and it's not your fault, it's totally my brain, cannot remember. So I just write it down and put a little thing next to it of like, hey, this is what this person, he has this dog, you know, stuff. Yeah. Any questions? Even like, hey, how did you do something on the reel? How was college like? I don't know, whatever.
Kind of going off what you, right here, sorry.
We're going to bring a mic around to you, so raise your hand and we'll bring the mic.
Wait, can you please stand?
Oh, yeah. Going off of what you just said about being around people that like you don't mesh well with, what's your best advice? Because have you ever worked on a project with someone who you just really can't like work well with, and like how do you get past that?
Okay, so I would say there's a few things. So that's a really good question. Basically, just sometimes you're going to work with people that you really don't like. I legitimately worked with somebody one time who came into our department or office, insulted everybody in there, and said that he could do the job better, and sat down and proceeded to completely ruin the shot. And he was just like that, just like argumentative. And how do you deal with that? The way you deal with that is you don't get angry, and you control your temper. You know, like you don't let that get better than you. Be calm, be nice. You can be politely stern, and you can stand up for yourself too. But when you stand up for yourself, don't try not to directly insult the other person, but stand up for yourself at the same time. So in this example, he was already going crazy, right? So he was in here, he was yelling at everybody, saying he wasn't even like our boss. He was just another artist. And he was messing everything up. We let him mess it up, and then he cooled off. We stayed cool. And then afterwards, we gave him what he just did, and we said that it was another artist, actually. And then he complained about it, how terrible it was. And I was like, oh, actually, that was your work. So you can do things. You know, you can play around with it, but don't, if I would start yelling at him and shouting, it wouldn't have helped. You know, it would have just escalated, and then I'm looking bad too, and it's just not going to be It's not even a good thing. So what I would recommend is just bear with it. You know, you're gonna run into a lot of people that you don't like, and hopefully you don't always have to run into people you don't like. Hopefully you don't work somewhere where you dislike everybody, and try to hold close to people that you do like and support them. Be that driven person for the people that you like and that like you back. You know? So.
I have kind of like two questions. The first one's really quick. Who's your Smash main?
Okay. So in Melee, I played Peach when I went to tournaments in college. I played Peach at first, and that's how I made some money. But then it's silly, because if you play Melee, you're going to know that this is ridiculous. But I play Mr. Game & Watch. Yeah. But I'm actually really good with them. I'm actually really, really good with them. But in Ultimate, I play Violet and Ridley. Yeah. But yeah.
And the other one is like, speaking of the tournaments, like kind of since I just finished applying there, what's student life like at Chapman?
Oh, you went to, okay, cool. I mean, Chapman's awesome. I had a great time at Chapman. It's not the largest school, but what you're going to notice is, what was really fun to me is, you're going to find a lot of cool different people to hang out with. The student life in general, are you going to a dorm?
Yeah.
Yeah? Dorm life is great. I would highly recommend dorm life. You get to meet a lot of interesting people. Actually, my first roommate ever, I still talk to a lot, and we're both in the same industry, and we've gotten each other. He was the guy who got me the internship, or told me about the internship originally. School's great. All the teachers are great. Honestly, you're going to have a great time in Chapman. So, yeah. Orange is great, too. I like Orange. Nice little town.
So you worked on The Flash, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever get to meet the actors for the shows that you work on?
So that's a good question. I'm going to say, generally as a visual effects artist, we're behind the computer. So typically you don't. But I've been very fortunate. I've met a lot of different people. So not usually, but yes, you can.
Okay, and then my other question, do you ever like get to like help people, like new interns? Do you help them, or do you also help other people get jobs like in acting? Like, can you help like people get jobs like in your office and stuff like that? Do you help people like learn how to do things in your office, is what I mean?
So one of my greatest joys is helping interns. At a few different places I worked, we had internship programs. Me being an intern at one point, I love, if someone's like driven and wants to learn, I will teach you as much as you can until you get bored of the subject. You know, like I'll just keep on going. And I like to see people succeed, so obviously. In terms of acting, not so much, because I work more on the post-production side. I do, back in the day when I did more of the production, when I was on set, where we had to hire and do like stuff, I don't know, like pitched movies and stuff. Yeah, we'd have that. Typically it'd be extra work, but that stuff's, extra work's so easy to get into, honestly, it's fun. But in terms of acting work, no, not typically.
I have two questions. One, did you work in every project that was on the video?
Which one?
Did you work in every project that you showed in the video?
Yes.
And also, what out of every movie and video game and everything you work in, what is your favorite project?
Favorite? So that's a good question too. So my favorite, there's sort of twofold. One is, what was most fun to work on? And I would have to say, I worked on some random, I worked at a motion capture studio, and that was super duper fun. So what we would have every day is, we had a stage basically this size with like lots of different cameras set up, and there'd be actors like with these little balls and stuff on them, and we capture how they move. But we did like wrestling videos, so we would set up a big old ring, and these guys would actually wrestle with all the balls on them and stuff. And it was just awesome. We sit up there, and one time they had a ballerina that was dressed up, and she was doing ballet while like the other people were wrestling over there, and then we had like people dressed up in like football gear, and they're going. That was probably the most fun, I would say. My favorite project though, I really like Doom Patrol that we work on currently. It's a fun show. It's a little bit R-rated. I had to cut out a lot of the stuff. Honestly, if you see my original reel, oh my gosh. But that show's really fun. I really love Joe Carnahan films. I'm working on one right now, Shadow Force, but I like all those other films. They're all like explosions and cars and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's like some like the more well-known stuff that you've worked on?
Well known? Okay. So I've worked on pretty much anything on CW. So if you've watched CW shows, I've worked on a lot of them. WB TV shows, so any superhero show that's Warner Brothers or DC Comics related, I've worked on that. I worked on some of the Avengers films. I've worked on lots of video games. I don't know if people know Skylanders, Spyro. Yeah, you love those? Yeah, I rigged all those characters. Yeah, all the dragons and stuff. I did all that. That was also really fun. Wow, okay, cool. I remember when we first saw that project, I was like, toys and video game? Oh my gosh, people are gonna love this thing.
Do we have other questions?
Any more
Right
questions?
here.
What seasons of The Flash did you work on?
Pretty much, I think it was season 3 till 6. Yeah, I didn't work on the latest one.
Okay.
We started branching out, but all the ones, pretty much all the ones before that to like season 3.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Other questions? Anyone? Raise your hand.
Yeah, even if it's like, hey, what's some crazy stories of like working in this industry? For the gorilla? So for Grodd, a lot of times we do scans, but for Grodd, actually we did a sculpt. So someone modeled a really nice looking gorilla face, and then we do something where you basically model different facial poses. And so he'll go in and he'll model all the different phonemes. So it'll be like, there's a whole list of different sounds you have to make a sentence. And so we model all those out. And there's different kinds of blend shapes. And then on top of that, you have this thing called CFX. It's like character and creature effects. It's basically, they do like capes. So they'll do anything that's like capes or fur or grass. But they also do the skin. So when someone talks, the skin actually like deforms and moves over the bones. And you need to have that kind of stuff for it to look good. And so they add that on top.
What are some of a film that you would say was way ahead of its time or groundbreaking in terms of visual effects? And what are some of those stories some of those crazy stories that you just...
Okay, cool. In terms of visual effects, so one that I didn't work on that I think was groundbreaking was Jurassic Park. I think that was groundbreaking. The T-Rex in a lot of those shots was CG, and it still looks good. It's sort of crazy. So I think that was probably one of the most groundbreaking and very inspirational. Lord of the Rings too, the original one. I watched all the behind the scenes way back in the day before I really got into this industry, and it shows a lot. I highly recommend those behind the scenes footage. Crazy stories. So I'm friends with, or I was friends with this character actor. He did a lot of creatures and stuff. He was in one of my friend's student projects, because he's a nice guy. I'm not going to say his name. Well, maybe I can say it. I'll say it. No? No, I won't say his name. But he's the nicest guy ever in the world. This is a good story. But I was working on something completely unrelated years later. And we got this request from Steven Spielberg. And he was like, I don't like how this alien looks. They had a real practical mask on it, on this character. And that's typically how this guy worked. But they didn't like how it looked. They didn't like how the eyes moved. They didn't like how the mouth was moving. And they're like, if we can't get this to look good, I'm going to erase this character from the show. And I'm just thinking, my friend's going to lose his job if we can't figure out how to digitally make this alien look good. So I went crazy. I was like, we remodeled the face. We like did all these scans, did all this like eye movements and all this crazy stuff. And we had to get it working within like 3 or 4 days because he was gonna make a decision soon. This was like early editing. And I just remember like and I was just telling my friends, we have to do this or my friend loses his job. We got this, you guys, we got this. And you know what, we got it in front of his eyes and he liked it. Alien got to stay in there the whole time. And I never told him that this happened, but it was just something I always thought about, like, oh my gosh, we actually saved his job. That's awesome. There's other stories, but they're not safe for.
Do you need to have experience before entering to college?
What's that?
Do you need to have any like experience before entering to college?
What I would say to that is you don't need to wait for college to start getting experience. I would highly recommend not expecting college to technically give absolutely everything. You're gonna have to learn also on your own. But no, you don't need I didn't know how to do like 95% of what I'm doing I didn't know before college. I didn't even know in college some of this stuff, you know. You see stuff, you start working with people, you see what they're doing, and you start picking up stuff. Just learn. One thing I will recommend is put a lot of effort into student class projects. It's sort of silly, but you don't want to be that person that is in a group project that just sort of sits back and does nothing while somebody else does everything. And some people have been in that position. I was in that position where like I was making projects here and no one else did. It actually sticks with people in a really silly way. And when you're in college and you're in these group projects, these people that you're with, and even now, these people that you're with, they may be in the same field as you, 10 years down the line. And you might be wanting to work in the same studio or the same workplace as these people. And if they remember you back in high school and you did nothing while they did everything, they might not be as willing to, put your name in or root for you to work with them, So.
I think there's one last question.
What was one of the one of your most difficult projects you've worked on?
Okay. So, the most unnecessarily difficult project I ever worked on was the show Pan Am. Basically like an airplane show, and we had to do tons of we actually had to rebuild the entire airport, and we had, everything was CG, there was like stairs and stuff, all this crazy stuff. And it was sort of a newer on-set suit, I would say, and they were using a newer sort of pre-visual system, and what that means is when they were shooting on set with the camera, they could actually see the actors in the CG set while they were on set. And it was all sort of new. This was very before its time. And they just did a lot of really silly things that you typically wouldn't. So they had like green screens, and typically you'd have a green screen that would be flat lit, tight against the wall. Because you don't want any shadows on it, because then you can't key it. And instead what they had is flapping green screens that they would sort of follow the actors around with. And you can't key it, first off, and second off, it cuts out all the data. We couldn't actually recreate anything very easily because there was just this flapping green screen just in front of everything. And it was just miserable, and those hours were nuts. It was that was when I was working 16 hours a day. And I would say that was probably the most difficult show I worked on, and it was primarily just because of poor preparation, I would say. Usually if things are prepared, we have a game plan and we know how long something's gonna get done. Where I work currently, I work 40 hours a week typically, sometimes with some overtime, but we just plan. We plan ahead. We make sure we know what we need, what the client wants, and when needs to get done, and then everything's good.
Well, thank you, Kilo. Everybody give Kilo a round of applause.